Well, first of all, thank you, everyone. I know it is that crunch time of the semester where you're probably thinking about finals, but also making sure you're ready for the upcoming holidays. So thank you so much for joining us. It is the last of our webinar series here at Upswing. So I'm your host today. My name is Christine Wyatt. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Upswing, which is it's a student platform that basically takes all the support services online, so you can have virtual sessions. And today we're going to be closing out the year with our partner, Samuel Merritt University. So before we introduce our two speakers, I wanted to encourage everyone, if you're comfortable, just say hi in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're kind of dialing in from in the world today. And with that, I will go ahead and introduce our two speakers. All right, if you want to advance to the next slide there, Katherine.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep, sorry.
All right, so first up we have Katherine Leroy. Katherine is the Assistant Director of Academic Support at Samuel Merritt University and co-directs a peer tutoring program of over 200 peer tutors who support twice that number of students each term in rigorous health science content. She also offers individualized academic success coaching and group workshops in a wide variety of topics in support, and is one of the founding members of her institution's wellness team, Be Well SMU. And I hope, Katherine, we have a chance to talk about that a little bit today. So thanks for joining, Katherine. And next up, we have Jessica Arauza, who has her bachelor's degree in communication studies and a master's degree in education from Sacramento State University. And Jessica currently serves as the academic support coordinator at Samuel Merritt University, where she oversees the tutoring program at the Sacramento campus. Jessica is also passionate about educational equity and assisting students on their path toward graduation. So thank you for being here today, Jessica. So with that, I'm going to actually turn it over to Jessica, who's going to lay some groundwork and tell us a little bit more about Samuel Merritt University and their health science program.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. As mentioned, my name is Jessica Arauza. I'm going to be covering the background on SMU and a little bit about our university. It is unique, and a lot of what we have done with our peer tutoring program is very contextual around the needs and the needs of our students and the needs of the university. So in order for us to explain tutoring and why we do things the way we do, I wanted to provide a brief overview of Samuel Merritt. So our university was founded in 1909, and it was actually founded with the focus on specifically nursing. We are WASC accredited, and although we're a private not-for-profit that serves approximately 2,050 students at any given time in the year, that number is a little bit hard to calculate for us because we constantly have a fluctuation of students that come in and graduate. We have 1-year programs, and then we have programs that are up to 3 years. So that number is constantly fluctuating, but generally we serve about 2,000 students. We have 3 campuses in Northern California. Katherine Leroy serves as director on our Oakland campus, and also supports our San Mateo campus, which is also in the Bay Area. And then I support our Sacramento campus and our Fresno campus. We have a 98% graduation rate and employment rate within 1 year of our students graduating. And now we actually have a wide range of academic programs, which I'll cover in the next slide. So these are the programs that are offered within the university. As you can see, the majority of them are nursing programs, but we do also have some other graduate health professions. So occupational therapy, physical therapy, physician assistant, and podiatric medicine. But I would say that a lot of the support that is offered within our tutoring program, and we offer it across programs, but I would say it is very much tailored to nursing just because that is the majority of our students. And as mentioned, our university is a little unique because all of the majority, not all, with the exception of our Bachelors of Science in Nursing, all of our students are post-secondary students. So they are students that already have their bachelor's degree, some even master's degrees. I've met students that like have law degrees, so we have students that come from all types of fields, backgrounds that come back and come into Samuel Merritt with the intention of becoming health professionals. So in that regard, our university is very unique in that we serve students from a wide range of backgrounds and skills, perspectives as a result. Can you just a second? So a little bit about the programs themselves. The curriculum within the programs are pretty set. So unlike other universities where students get to, choose their electives or kind of choose the classes that they want to enroll in, the curriculum for all of the programs is the same. So students can anticipate enrolling into a program and they know exactly what classes they're going to be taking each semester for the next 1 or 2 years. And that is incredibly helpful for us as academic support and overseeing our tutoring program, because we know when our high peak seasons are where we can anticipate that we're going to get a lot of tutoring requests. And it also helps us be able to maneuver our resources and our services a little bit more to be catered to, specific cohorts, and when we know that they're going to be in different parts of their curriculum. It's awesome. It operates in a cohort system. So a lot of our students will, they enter with the cohort and they'll finish with their cohort. And the great thing about that is that they build community as a result. So a lot of students, support one another in their programs. They will advocate for one another. Katherine and I get this a lot where students will message us and be like, hey, our cohort is really struggling with this class. Is there any, is there anything that we can do to work with tutors to get support in these topics? So the cohort system works very well. The programs, as you can imagine, are very rigorous, intense, and demanding. Students have little to no time, I would say, for extracurricular activities or even, jobs, because they're held to very high standards of academic achievement, and they typically cannot fall below anywhere between 73 to 78% on exams. And then the last thing I want to highlight is that we do not actually have a learning center for which we operate our peer tutoring program. So we depend completely really on our Upswing platform system to manage the interactions and the tutoring sessions between both our tutors and our tutees. And it's worked really well. And prior to COVID, this was the case. We've never had a learning center for many reasons, but the main reason is that many of our students are non-traditional students, and they have, they're in class all day. They have clinicals, like 12-hour shift clinicals, right? So a lot of the support that they need is during, what we would consider non-business hours. So very late in the evening, oftentimes on weekends. And our peer tutoring program is very self-managed because of that. And we really do depend on our tutors and our students to carry out the work. And we really depend on Upswing to help us in the operations and management of that. And I'll pass it over to Katherine.
Great, thank you, Jessica, and welcome everybody. Great to be here. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into our peer tutoring program. So, Jessica has touched on that, but just to give everyone an overview of our academic support department, we've talked about our institution as a whole, but to drill down a little more specifically. So Jessica and I are we are the academic support department, and we are a very small school. As an aside, because of that, really our tutors they're the boots on the ground. I mean, they provide a lot of the support. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a position that we created called Tutor Coordinator, and how much they help our department as well. So with academic support, Jessica and I offer individualized academic coaching. So above and beyond peer tutoring, students can come to us and they can get support in things like stress management, time management, study strategies, test taking, all the usual topics. Jessica and I also offer academic success workshops, especially as part of our orientation activities. So we are part of a team that has developed a student success kind of module that we unroll for cohorts that are coming in, and that's predominantly pre-licensure nursing programs. So we're giving a lot of workshops and skills for students as they come in on all those topics that I just mentioned. Again, time management, study strategies, etc. And it's at that point during these student success modules that we really cheerlead our peer tutoring program, and we talk about Upswing, and sometimes our tutor coordinators come in and they help cheerlead. So it's a kind of a major platform as students enter for us to let them know about the tutoring program, and also help to destigmatize students' attitudes towards accessing tutoring, which is something that we try to address throughout a student's journey. So peer tutoring in general, you can see I've been at the institution since March of 2015, so I'm coming up on 7 years. You can see how much we've grown. And so I'll share with you where the peer tutoring program was when I first came on. We had 2 tutor coordinators, and they weren't really even called tutor coordinators. It was just a student who sort of helped coordinate all of our nursing programs, and a student who helped to coordinate all of our graduate programs, which is a big task. And we didn't have a platform. We didn't have Upswing. So basically we had an Excel sheet that I was passing back and forth to the coordinators, and we were trying to individually match students with tutors, which was completely non-sustainable, we soon realized. So we see the numbers here for our peer tutors, and that's, it seems like we have a lot in 2021. Those aren't all active tutors at any given time. So, our tutors, and one of the things I'll talk about that is so fantastic about Upswing is it allows our tutors to control their own schedules. So tutors might be very available at a particular time in their journey. Maybe they don't have as much courses, or maybe they're in clinicals and they have some extra time. And then at other times they fall off the face of the earth. And that is completely okay with us. Again, we don't have a structured sort of learning center where they clock in and clock out. And I think the fluidity and flexibility of our tutoring program and the way that we can use Upswing to enhance that really speaks to the success of our program, and how smooth it can run, and how it's individually catered really to the students' needs, given that they are non-traditional students. I'll talk a bit about, I do want to mention that our academic support department also is one of the consistently highest ranked department in the entire institution, and we're very proud of that. And a lot of the feedback we get is the strength of our tutoring program, because that's the way that most students interface our department. It isn't necessarily through the coaching or the workshops, it's through the tutoring support, because the highest percentage, I think, of students will have interfaced with our tutoring program. So a little bit about how we've kind of grown and what we've done with the peer tutoring program. So as you can see, we had 2 tutor coordinators, and then when Jessica came on board, we started to expand that. And I can't stress enough how important these tutor coordinators are. So now at this moment, we have a team of coordinators for every program on every campus. And they are the representatives of our peer tutoring program for that particular program. And ideally, because a particular program might span different cohorts, so you might have, a first-year cohort, a second-year cohort, and sometimes even a third-year cohort, Or in a year-long program, you might have cohorts representing different graduation dates within a year. These coordinators often, we have a team of coordinators, and there will be a coordinator who represents a particular cohort in that program. And the reason this is so important is because Jessica and I oversee a lot of the programs and a lot of the students, and they have their ear to the ground. They can let us know when an entire cohort is really struggling, what courses they're struggling in. We can do tutor recruitment as a result. They help to cheerlead the program, destigmatize tutoring. They help us to recruit tutors. You know, Jessica and I can say, hey, it's a great opportunity, come on board. But when it's that peer-to-peer, it's really significant. And as Jessica mentioned, the cohorts get really tight. They're a family to each other as they move through their programs. And so again, the cohorts are sort of a seamless part of that family. And they, I can't stress enough, I don't think we could manage the peer tutoring program and have it be as successful if it weren't for our coordinators. And Jessica and I meet with them consistently throughout the year, and give them additional training and touch base with them. And they also are responsible for organizing a lot of our group review tutoring sessions with students. So it takes a lot off of Jessica and I in terms of that focus.
Catherine, if I could interject just
Yes.
really quickly, someone had asked, and it seems really relevant, what are your criteria for becoming
Awesome.
a tutor coordinator?
Excellent question. I'm going to get a little into the training of the tutors. So let me start with a regular peer tutor. A peer tutor needs to fill out an application with at least one faculty recommendation, and then we touch base with that faculty. We encourage them obviously to talk to the faculty first, so there's no surprises. And then for all peer tutors, there is a mandatory hour-long training. I think for Jessica, it's an hour and a half. And what we've done is we've front-loaded some administrative work so that the training is paid, and we offer them 30 minutes of administrative paid training as well, where they watch videos, two videos about Upswing. It's part of their mandatory training, and getting some of their paperwork done. So we don't have to worry about that in the face-to-face training. And we'll bring groups together and we make it fun, we make it interactive. We cover study strategies, best practices, academic integrity, intentional communication. So then a tutor is ready to tutor. Now, when we have a vacancy of a tutor coordinator within a team, we advertise it to the entire program. And ideally, we're going to get a tutor who's going to come on board as a coordinator, but we don't make that necessarily a criteria because we kind of want to open it up, because the tutor coordinator position, most coordinators end up tutoring, but they don't have to. It's more of an administrative coordination position. So they don't necessarily have to have had tutoring experience, although to be honest, if we have a team of people who are interviewing for the coordinator position, we usually will give it to somebody who has tutoring experience. They just have more insight into the position. But in any case, the coordinator position is one we actually interview for. And we don't do that. We couldn't sustain interviewing for tutors. We just have too many coming in and out. But for the coordinators, usually a coordinator will stay for a couple semesters, if not a couple years, depending on their program. And kind of phase out, and then the baton gets kind of passed to the newbie coming in. So we do a series of interviews, and what we're looking for is creativity, innovation, because our coordinators often have these light bulb ideas that Jessica and I would not have even thought of because they have the vision on the ground. We want them to be able to not wait for instructions, to be able to have an idea, get our support, and implement. So very social, very unafraid of, talking to faculty, talking to students, jumping into cohorts that aren't their own. So really great communication skills. And then when we finish with the interviews, because it's such a flexible position, that's how the teams have expanded. Sometimes we'll have two really great candidates and they might represent different cohorts. And we're like, hey, let's just bring them both on. The more the merrier, that's great. And each coordinator brings different skills. So hopefully that answers the question of the coordinator.
Great, thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, for sure. I'll say too that in addition to the mandatory hour training that we give our tutors, Jessica and I have developed, we're really proud of this because our fall series was the most robust ever. We each semester give a tutor training series of about now I think we had about 7 trainings throughout the semester that were optional but paid. So we go deeper into intentional communication, boundary setting, mental health, so they can support not only their own mental health, but the students that they work with. We had Upswing come in and do for the first time, do a presentation. Upswing Joey, our partner, has talked to our coordinators before. This was the first time that he came in and did an entire workshop, and the feedback we got was really fantastic. And actually, part of the video that we made of that training, we want now to make mandatory for all tutors, because it was really pertinent information for all our tutors to know about. So that's the training. I also want to say, and this has been really helpful in terms of us expanding on what we can support. We obviously have tutoring for all the high need content areas. And I'll explain a little bit later how students can use Upswing to search for different content areas and how helpful that is. But we also expanded to have tutors support students in non-content areas. So a student who needs support in stress management, or perhaps math for meds, or time management, or study strategies, or board exam prep, can now go in and find tutors who feel that they have expertise in those areas. And so we've really been able to expand that peer-to-peer support. Again, most of those topics Jessica and I can do coaching for, but as we all know, students are much more often comfortable to just connect with a peer. And that peer's been there, done that. They really understand it from a student perspective. So that's been really helpful. And again, towards a little bit later, I will describe how Upswing has helped us make it even easier for students to search for these particular areas. I'll say too that pre-COVID, we were doing remote tutoring, but mostly face-to-face, but we were doing remote tutoring. And it was mostly ad hoc in terms of the remote platforms that students used. A lot of it was like Google Hangout or FaceTime. So they weren't very robust platforms. Now, of course, with COVID, students are not only using the Virtual Learning Center as part of Upswing, which is really helpful, but Zoom, WebEx, Teams, all 3 of those we also offer to students for free. So they have a lot of robust options in terms of platforms. I'm looking at my notes here. Yeah, and the last thing I'll say, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when we talk about the reporting in Upswing, but just as an aside, every semester, Jessica and I send out surveys, both to all tutors who have received, all students who have received tutoring, as well as all of our tutors. And that gives us data. And what's been most helpful is actually the qualitative data, the comments and suggestions that students have made. And we ask, how supportive have they found the coordinators to be? Do they have the resources that they need? How easy was it to find a tutor? And we have that data. We haven't done a lot with it yet formally, but we definitely have it, and are still waiting to kind of coordinate with our data team within our institution to make a little bit more sense of it and be able to tell a story from it. So I'll stop there and hand it to Jessica, unless there's any questions about any of that.
We're good. I'll capture any other ones, and we'll round out that at the end. But I think Jessica, we're all set.
Wonderful. All right, so now I'm going to cover the fun stuff, which is our challenges, the challenges that present themselves within our peer tutoring program. Although they're challenges, I think that I like to reframe my way of thinking about them, because sometimes they're also just really good opportunities for growth, right? With that being said, before we go into best practices, we did want to talk a little bit about what those are, so that you have a better sense of the areas that we are still kind of working on and trying to kind of drill down. So first thing that I wanted to cover is a little bit on our tutor recruitment. So we, as Katherine mentioned, for our regular peer tutors, we have them fill out an application. They have to provide a faculty recommendation. Once we get that endorsement from faculty and ensure that everything is, in place, we reach out to them. And we offer a good pay rate. Our tutors get paid $20 an hour. Majority of them fall into either federal work study. I would say the majority of our tutors are federal work study. If they do not qualify for federal work study, we hire them under student employment, but their pay rate remains the same. However, tutor recruitment is sometimes, and it's so odd because we have times where we get a lot of tutor applications, and then we have times where we really struggle to get tutors on board, as I'm sure is the case for a lot of the institutions that are joining us today. The specific challenge that we run across is that our students, as you can imagine, are incredibly busy. Among classes, clinicals, which they have 2 or 3 days a week on top of their classes, which are all-day classes, preceptorships towards the end of their program. So it is really hard for tutors to want to, make that commitment. And we really try to ease some of that burden, right, by making our processes a little bit more lax. Our onboarding training, as Katherine mentioned, is an hour to an hour and a half. We have tutors do a lot of the things leading up to them at their own pace whenever they can. So we really, and we really stress that the flexible nature of the position. So there is no minimum hours of tutoring that tutors ever have to commit to, and they basically have full control over their schedule. So our peer tutoring program is very flexible, and that works great most of the time. But as you can imagine, sometimes we run into some issues there as it pertains to both recruitment and ensuring that we have the adequate support to meet the needs of students and the tutoring that they need. And then we really rely, as Katherine mentioned, on our tutor coordinators and faculty to help us with tutor recruitment and ensuring that we are able to get recommendations, students recommended and we have to do basically a lot of personal outreach as a result, right? So calling students, sending them emails, and really encouraging them to apply. And I would say that's both a challenge and a best practice. I've had a lot of success with that when, we call students and we're like, hey, Professor X recommended you to be a peer tutor. They say that you would be amazing. I think it boosts students' academic confidence a little bit, which we have also found to be a major challenge for a lot of students in wanting to assume the role as a peer tutor, because although students may be, doing very well academically and more than capable to be a peer tutor, sometimes they're lacking some of that confidence to want to pursue that. So when we connect with students directly and give them that little push, they're much more likely to want to apply and assume the position. And then the other thing that we struggle with, which again, I'm sure is something that a lot of institutions also have challenges with, is students actually accessing peer tutoring. A lot of our programs are very fast-paced. We have an accelerated bachelor's of nursing program, which is a year long for students to complete the entirety of the program. Most of their courses are anywhere between 4 to 5 weeks. So we really stress the importance of students accessing tutoring support very quickly. And as a matter of fact, we really emphasize that from the beginning of their program. So them accessing peer tutoring support on time is one challenge, because a lot of the support that they may need has to be very timely, right? If they let 2 or 3 weeks go by where they're really struggling and they want to access tutoring support that third week, they've already missed the majority of the class's content, and the support that they need for them to, get their grades up. So we really emphasize the importance of timely tutoring access. And another thing that Katherine talked about is just the stigma around, accessing tutoring support. Many of our students, have a really hard time acknowledging that they need support, and are, not always reticent to reach out and acknowledge that they need the help. So we always, we continuously have to like cheerlead the program. During orientation, we do presentations, and really throughout the year, we're sending out email blasts, doing in-class presentations to remind students and destigmatize tutoring. And then our third challenge is that as a result of us not having a learning center or a physical location for which our tutors carry out tutoring, there is really no direct supervision of our tutors. As we mentioned, our program is kind of self-managed, self-run. We really depend on our tutors to, kind of do the work, manage their schedules. We always stress the importance of being ethical, of academic integrity, and we really hold our tutors to that high standards. Katherine and I have not been disappointed. I would say our peer tutors are phenomenal. They thrive with the autonomy that they're given. And, we fully trust them to, document everything properly on Upswing. And we really utilize Upswing to kind of check in to see, what tutoring sessions are taking place, as well as kind of know where a lot of the, what classes tutors are tutoring for. And we also really rely on our tutor coordinators as our boots on the ground and report back to us and kind of let us know what's going on, what areas our tutors might need support in, right? Or what areas they're hearing from students that are there in need and support in, so that we're able to coordinate our efforts a little bit better that way. Yeah, and as I mentioned, Upswing has been a phenomenal platform for us to be able to keep track of the tutoring sessions that are taking place. That's how Katherine and I, verify time cards for our tutors. We log on to Upswing. We really emphasize the importance of them documenting everything on there. Upswing has the virtual learning center system, which a lot of our tutors utilize to carry out their tutoring sessions. So everything is reported on there. We can see exactly what students they met with for whatever amount of time. And that's what we utilize to, get insight as to, one, data and metrics, but again, we really rely on the platform for record keeping as well.
Jessica, if I may, we've got one question from our attendees here, and that's how often do you deal with, or do you have to deal with tutors who are unresponsive? And if you do, how do you approach this?
That's a good question. As Katherine mentioned, our tutors have, control over their schedule, so they're never expected to tutor a minimum amount of hours. With that being said, sometimes we do run into situations where, we know that there's a very high need for tutoring for a specific class, and we'll reach out to tutors directly and ask them to upload their schedules and, basically make themselves available to support a class. I would say that we typically have success with this because we onboard a lot of tutors to be able to fill the needs of the different courses. But yeah, occasionally we do, as I'm sure is true for many of you that work with tutors, we do oftentimes run into, tutors that are not responsive, and that typically requires, Katherine and I to reach out directly and be like, hey, what's going on? How can we support you? So it does happen occasionally. Katherine, I don't know if you want to chime in.
Yeah, it's an ongoing, it's not a huge issue, but it's always there. And so some of the other ways we try to mitigate it is we really stress in the training. We try to put the tutors in student shoes and remind them how they felt when they were struggling. Can you imagine requesting tutoring and having it go into a black hole? And it is, and what we stress is absolutely say no when you have to say no, take care of your situation, but say no. It is your responsibility as a tutor to respond. And so you do have to respond. Again, as Jessica mentions, with that said, sometimes, you know, tutors just get completely caught up, or maybe they're in clinicals and they don't respond. In the letter that we send to tutors, to students, when they request, so some of them will formally request tutoring and some of them will just hop on Upswing. But usually if it's a new student, they still don't kind of know where to go, and we have a tutor request form. And in that letter with instructions about how to get onto Upswing, we stress that the tutors are students too, and sometimes they do get impacted in terms of their time. So we stress, if you have any difficulty connecting with a tutor, please try several different tutors, but reach out to us immediately if you have issues. And that's when, as Jessica mentioned, we'll put out an appeal to the particular tutors that can support that particular course, and we usually will get tutors immediately replying they can help out. And so we do still individually match in that way. Great. Any other questions?
No, not this time. Thanks, both of you.
Okay, great. So I'll, jumping off from Jessica and how she outlined some of the challenges, I'm going to talk about sort of the benefits and the benefits that Upswing has offered and the ways we've partnered with Upswing, and the ways in which the platform has allowed us to mitigate some of these challenges in a really great way. So as Jessica mentioned, because we don't have a learning center, we don't directly supervise, literally we could not do this without Upswing. And we would need some kind of platform that would allow us to have a self-managed system. So Upswing, again, allows our tutors to create a profile, tell potential students a little bit about themselves. They can get to kind of market themselves a little bit, put a picture. They put the skills, the courses, and the non-content areas that they're able to support, a little bit about their education. And the most important piece of this is their schedule. So that's the other across the board responsibility for tutors, is that they do have to manage their schedule. So please, you know, disappear from the face of the earth for weeks at a time if you need to. That's completely acceptable, but take your schedule down. Don't show availability. And that is another issue sometimes that we come across, is that students get frustrated because, you know, a tutor had availability, but they really didn't. They didn't update their schedule. But the good news is that tutors have that power to do that. So their schedule is completely self-managed. And I think tutors really appreciate that, especially given how impacted their programs are and how busy their schedules are. So at any given time, if I'm a student, I can go into Upswing, I can pick a particular course or a particular non-content area. I can see all the tutors that support that. And then I can, you know, kind of match maybe my personality based on how they describe themselves. And then I can, most importantly, match my schedule. And I can request tutoring directly through the platform that way. I will say, though, that that is not the only way that students and tutors are connecting with each other, because especially once a tutor and a student develop a relationship and maybe there's continuing sessions, they might text each other or email each other. But even when they develop a relationship, I've heard that a lot of students and tutors still like to use the platform. It's just structured. There's you know, just a very organized way for them to schedule their sessions. Because we also have multiple geographic areas in terms of our campuses, I think this has also allowed a lot of sort of cross support. So because we have programs on different campuses, before, when it was in person mostly, you know, students were only searching for maybe tutors that were in their geographic area. Now that we've expanded on our capability for remote, students can use Upswing to find tutors that aren't necessarily from their campus, but have expertise in a particular area. So that's been really helpful. What's really interesting too is we can have a particular tutor, and this is helpful with the Upswing platform. We can have a particular tutor who's, say, a rock star in anatomy. Now, maybe I'm a physical therapy student, I'm a tutor, and I rock anatomy. Well, anatomy shows up in our podiatry program and our occupational therapy program. So we encourage our tutors to find out the anatomy courses in those other programs and add it to their profile. Now they've just expanded their reach. So that if we didn't have a platform like Upswing, as a physical therapy student, I wouldn't really know any other students in different programs. But now on Upswing, if I pull up anatomy and I get a list of tutors, I'm going to see physical therapy tutors, but I might see some podiatry tutors and some occupational therapy tutors because they really love to help students in anatomy and they just want to spread the love. So that's really helpful. And it's sometimes interesting for students to work with tutors from other programs and kind of get a different perspective. For our nursing programs, that's true for things like pathophysiology or health assessment, because those will happen in our undergraduate nursing programs as well as our graduate nursing programs. So that's been kind of interesting. I'll say too, as I mentioned, just to mention it again, the virtual learning center from Upswing has been very helpful, especially pre-COVID, because we didn't have a lot of options that were robust with audio, video, whiteboard, all of those capabilities. But one of the main things, obviously, that Upswing has helped us with is the reporting, because we can get really granular in the numbers in a way that I don't think Jessica and I could on our own. So, you know, you can see that we can see how coaches are being rated. We can see total number of hours, lots of different metrics. And that tells us how high need courses are maybe changing, because, you know, depending on the levels of past experience that a cohort comes in with, sometimes we'll expect a high need course to be this, and it maybe won't be, and we'll rely on the data to tell us that. And then we can also, like I'm saying, see what the high need courses are. Review session is interesting because in that most of our programs encourage students to study across content and to make connections and to increase their critical thinking skills. We have a label for a tutoring session that will be just review. It might not be one particular content area or course, it might be several. So we've expanded on that as well. Finally, what I'll say is we have a great relationship with Joey, who's our representative, and we meet with him now. We meet with him monthly, and Upswing has been really responsive in things that we hear from our coordinators or our tutors or our students. Will say, hey, we really feel like there's a need for this, and we feel like we're heard. So, for example, there's been an expanded messaging capability where tutors and students can talk to each other through the platform, which has been really helpful. We now have a way to see abandoned sessions, meaning tutors who don't respond or don't show up, and zero in on specifically who those tutors are, and see trends if there are trends happening. And then because of COVID and with all the different remote platforms that students were using, they also expanded to allow the reporting to specify Zoom if a session was happening on Zoom. And I believe that'll probably be expanded from there. So suffice to say, those are some specific examples, but it's nice to have a platform where you feel like, you know, we're the ones who are actually using it. We're the ones who are hearing, you know, contextually what the demands are, and that we can feed that back to the company, and it will really be listened to. So that's all I think from me as well, and just want to see if maybe there's any other questions.
There was one that does scroll back a little bit, Katherine, and other than the recommendation from faculty, the question is whether there's also a GPA requirement, and I believe this is related to the tutor coordinators, but maybe you can answer that for both.
There's not. So I think compared to other institutions, the criteria is quite low for peer tutors, but because we're such a small school, we know our faculty, and the faculty know our peer tutoring program. And so when they give one or two faculty names, we have a back and forth with that faculty. And so You know, if we had a learning center, we would probably require endorsement for every single course that a tutor wanted to tutor. We don't. Our criteria is that once you get endorsed, anything that you feel able and willing to support, you can put within your course profile. And I don't think we don't really have a problem with that. My attitude is tutors are so like, well, I'm not sure I can even support that, that they usually will put something in their course profile that they really do feel confident in. Something I forgot to mention that's also really important, and I think we're really lucky, is we are able to pay tutors for prep time. So we have a ratio of 30 minutes prep for every hour and a half of tutoring. And so we don't expect tutors to be walking encyclopedias. They can find out what a student wants to focus on and then prepare and get paid for it. And I think that's really helpful for them.
That's terrific. And I honestly can say I've seen the data for every partner we work with, which is about 70. I don't think I've ever seen a higher tutor rating than 4.9. So clearly your criteria are working quite well for you.
Great.
No other questions at this time, Katherine?
Okay, yeah. I think that's all, you know, I don't know, Jen or Christine, if either of you have any other questions that you might think would be helpful, because you know our institution a little bit better.
I'm going to see if Jan has any. I don't have any right now. I've been kind of peppering you with the questions because they were all so topic specific. Thank you for being flexible and working all of those in. I did invite anyone. It's not too late. You can still put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A down at the bottom if you would like. We are happy to answer any and all questions. So I'll just pause for a moment and we see if we have a few more questions.
Great. And then of course, Jessica, feel free to chime in too at any point.
Mm-hmm.
I'll chime in regard to the last question regarding the GPA requirement. As Katherine mentioned, even though we don't have necessarily a minimum GPA requirement, and that's really because the programs are already structured in a way where you have to be in really good academic standing in order to, you know, continue on with your program. So, you know, students are really held to A, B standards. And, you know, the only requirement is that students are in good academic standing in order to tutor. And we've, like, as Katherine mentioned, we haven't really encountered any issues as a result of that. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on, which I don't think we touched on, is that our tutoring program is also unique in that we don't have amount of hours that our tutoring sessions, like how long our length of time for our tutoring sessions. So our tutoring sessions can be 3-4 hours, and that's actually something that we worked closely with Joey, our Upswing partner, to kind of tailor the Upswing platform so that the tutoring sessions reflected, you know, it used to be where, you know, you could only select a tutoring session for, I want to say, an hour or 2 hours, which I think that's what I've seen in most universities, because we are a health sciences institution and we understand the need of our students and the fact that our students need a lot of support. We don't have a minimum amount of hours that tutoring sessions have to be. And that's worked really well in, you know, again, ensuring that students' needs are met. I can tell you that tutors also appreciate that time, because we were finding that, you know, an hour or two just wasn't enough time for tutors to get through all of the content and be able to explain things well in that amount of time. So that is also something that I think is kind of unique to us, that again, we really structure the program with a lot of flexibility around the needs of both our students and our tutors.
I do have a question. This is Jan. How much do you use, or how much do tutors offer up in terms of being on demand versus having students pre-schedule?
I think it's predominantly pre-schedule.
It is, okay, great.
Yeah, yeah. It's nice to have that feature though that Upswing has, where a tutor can just, be present. We also have a budget, and again, if they were in a learning center, it'd be a different story. They could be there for drop-in. I think that would bring up an issue of, trusting them in terms of just being available, wherever they are in their house or in a cafe or what have you. So I don't think it makes as much sense, but I think it's used, but I think predominantly it's scheduled for sure.
Right, that makes sense. And then in terms of the feedback that students are providing on your tutors on their experiences, what does that look like primary overall?
Yeah, I can speak to it, and then Jessica, you can as well. Predominantly really positive. I mean, students are so grateful to have that support. It doesn't cost anything. They have selection, their peers, they've been there, done that, and they have content expertise. I think the main complaint is, like we mentioned, that sometimes their requests go into a black hole. They don't get a response, or that tutors don't keep their schedules updated. So I think those are the two pieces of critique that we consistently get, and we're always trying to find ways to encourage tutors to keep up with their schedules. But overall, very positive. Jessica, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say certainly from students' perspective, more oftentimes than not, very positive. Students always tell how professional and well prepared our tutors are in our tutoring sessions, and just of how much support they provide students. And I think on the other hand, from a tutor's perspective, it's incredibly helpful for them, because most of our programs, students that are in the programs, have to take licensing exams at the end of their programs. So being able to tutor really helps support them in that kind of like review, for them, and them feeling more confident and just more academically prepared, developing that academic confidence to do well in their exams, but also setting them up for success in their future roles as healthcare practitioners.
Yeah, excellent. And I'll add too, all of our students are caregivers. They're going into a caregiving profession. And so I think what Jessica and I hear over and over again, once they get their feet wet with tutoring, is that they love the mentorship part of it. They love getting, the good feeling when a student passes a test, or they get that text, you really helped me. And so a lot of our tutors go above and beyond. They really do more than they're even paid for. Just because they love that role.
Wonderful. That's all the questions that we had. I did want to quickly sum up some of the points you made around recruitment, because just last week, a school here in Texas reached out to us at Upswing and said, we need to work with Upswing because we actually need to supplement our tutors with yours because we can't recruit. So I'm going to go back to them and share some of your tips. But the things I heard you say are, a very fair pay rate, a very flexible schedule, so the students can set their schedule and adjust, and should adjust as needed. There's no minimum requirements on how many hours they spend tutoring or how many weeks. There's a low barrier for training. It's maybe an hour, hour and a half. And then some of it is even self-paced, so they can do that on their own schedule. And I honestly think it's really wonderful, and frankly, pretty rare that you pay them that 30 minutes of prep time for every hour and a half of tutoring sessions. It's wonderful. It really incentivizes them to be prepared. And these are some of the things I think that really clarify that 4.9 rating, which everyone is out of a 5. It's really unprecedented to see it that high. So it really speaks highly to your training, your mentorship, but also to the quality of the people who show up every day, want to give that extra bit to the students that are they're supporting, almost like their former selves. So there's a lot of willingness to pay it forward, if you will. But that's all the questions we have for today. We're almost at time. So I wanted to really thank both of you. You've been a wonderful partner. Joey loves working with you. He says amazing things. You have come a long way. We're so glad to be a very small part of that journey. So thank you, Katherine. Thank you, Jessica, for sharing your stories, your challenges, and your solutions with us today. So thank you, everyone, for being here. And with that, we'll conclude. Everyone have a wonderful week. Thanks again for being here, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Right.